Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the state flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, as a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Thank you. Okay. So, moving on to the next item of the agenda, approval of work session agenda.
I move that we approve the work session agenda.
Second.
Okay, hold on. If we can, under presentations, if we can amend our motions, I guess, or whatever. The Juvenile Justice Advisory Board isn't going to be here today, so we can move it to March, correct? So other than that, the agenda should be good.
So I approve the work session agenda with the changes as amended.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries aye. It's going to be a day.
That's all we can ask.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is going to be purpose and public input. The general purpose of the Grant County work session is to inform the Grant County Board of Commissioners of the agenda items that will be addressed at the next regular meeting, and for the department heads and other elected officials to communicate with commissioners in regard to matters in their respective departments. In accordance with Grant County's Open Meeting Act resolution, we welcome public input limited to agenda items only. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. Do we have anyone for public speaking? Okay, no one for public speaking, so we move on. County reports. Do we have any county reports?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. My report for January 10th, February 12th, 2020. Item number one, we currently have one vacancy. Also that I didn't put on your report is we now have a discharge planner, which was hired on February the 10th. He has currently been working on putting together the plan for the discharge detainees, providing them with resources and whenever they walk out the door. And what we've been doing is he's been currently attending the Stepping Up meetings. He's been going to other training. I've taken him around to meet some of the other resource providers. Tomorrow we're going to be meeting with HMS and TUCASA. They'll be coming to the facility, helping him put together the plan and his discharge duties, which will be to evaluate the detainees while they're in the facility for some of their needs. I'll give you an example: housing, employment, medical, substance abuse, mental health assistance, whatever they require. He'll be doing those assessments and then getting them ready whenever they're discharged from the facility. That way, when they leave, those providers will be able to, he can make the references to those providers, and then when they leave the facility, when they walk out the door, somebody will latch on to them, and hopefully it will start to reduce the recidivism, and that's what our plans are, and also to provide them with the kind of services and help that they need. So that's what his job is going to be. We have plans to have him attend another facility to look at and spend some time with one of the other discharge planners in Otero County. She's been doing this for a long time, and that way she can pretty much set him up, and he'll understand what his duties are and kind of put a plan together that's consistent with our facility. So we're trying to put that together right now. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is this discharge planner also going to work on the transportation from the detention center to services?
That has been a discussion. We have been working with, as far as what we've been trying to keep everybody, that not just the ones that have been discharged and those that need rides. We've been using your bus passes. We've been using them a lot more now to be able to provide those individuals. Those discussions have come up. We've been in discussion with the magistrate judge We had a meeting yesterday with all the judges to try and determine scheduled discharges. We're not sure if we're going to be able to do that. What we were looking at is doing scheduled discharges from 8 in the morning, 12 in the afternoon, and 5 in the evening at the time that Correcaminos is running, so we can be able to see if we can coincide our discharges with those and hopefully try and address that transportation issue. So we're looking at that right now, and so we're trying to discuss with the judges if that's even an option to be able to have that done. And Judge Laney is very much in favor of that. So we've been working on some of those transportation issues, and yes, to answer your question, that'll also be a part of his duties to try and find some method of transportation for those that are in need of it.
Great. I'm glad to hear that you're continuing to work on that, and just know that, I'm really happy to beat the bushes for bus passes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. Item number 2 is our training update. Sergeant Galindo and Lieutenant Bonifant attended the Prison Elimination Act, the pre-investigator certification, and they did receive that certification. We had 4 previously hired officers who are currently undergoing their field training right now. They're on different shifts. This training will end at the end of February, and will receive their evaluation from the training officers, and then that time they'll be determined whether they'll be allowed to start a shift on their own now, and their basic training will be completed. Currently, instead of 3 newly hired officers who are undergoing basic training, if you'd please change that on your report to 2. We had one that decided that it wasn't quite for him, so he went ahead and left. So if you can change that to 2 on your report. Item number 3, that status remains the same. Community report is just some of the meetings that I attended in January and February. Item number 5, we're awaiting nominations. On the arrest totals for the month of January 10th through February 12th, Silver City Police Department 60, Grant County Sheriff's Department 55, New Mexico State Police 28, Byrd Police 3, Santa Clara 9, Hurley 2, Probation Office 2, and then we had 7 walk-ins. On February 12th, there were 31 detainees attending court proceedings. 21 were sentenced to the Grant County Detention Center. 2 were sentenced to the Department of Corrections. 8 awaiting transportation to a rehabilitation center. 3 are being held for adult probation. No parolees are currently being held. And we have 1 detainee pending transfer to an out-of-state facility. And there were no detainees or pending transport to a federal facility. Our head count for February the 12th, 66. The average monthly population for January 10th through February 12th was 72. Special management report on February 12th, we had 3 males, and currently the head count is 75 as of today. That's my report, sir.
Do we have any questions? I think I have one. How long does it usually take, and this may have been asked before, but how long does it usually take for detainees that are waiting for transfer, for them to get transferred out of here?
It depends on the Sheriff's Department, sir, and availability. Usually whenever we get, they get the transport order first, and then they'll send it to us, and it's up to the Sheriff's Department to schedule the transports whenever they have availability to send somebody. So it's different, Mr. Chairman. It's just we're kind of waiting for, we wait on the Sheriff's Department to be able to provide that transportation. If they can't, we do try and work with them. If they don't have availability, we'll ask them, and then we'll certainly, we don't do it very often, but we'll do we can do some transports for them also if they're short-handed. And
are we still incurring that cost while they're sitting there, or is somebody else paid for it? We are.
Usually the Sheriff's Department has their own transportation cost, and if it costs us the overtime to be able to do that for them, then we have to pay the overtime.
No, and I'm talking more about housing, the housing cost while they're waiting to be transferred to another facility.
Yes, sir. The county continues to incur that cost.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other questions or anything? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Currently, we're hauling chips. It's still kind of muddy out there for us to do too much out there. We are patching as weather permits. I did get the dump trucks ordered, and hopefully we're going to see them sometime in July. All the blades are up and running. AUI should be here March 2nd. They kind of got delayed. They were supposed to be here this month, but got delayed because of weather on the projects that they're working on. So they'll be here. They plan on being here March 2nd to start on that bridge project. The parking lot is complete, pretty much complete, and within budget. They do have to come back and do some striping. They'll probably do it on a weekend again, restripe everything, and they got to put some arrows down, kind of directing traffic once they pull in here, tell them which way to go. We did have a laborer who went through the training process and was able to obtain his CDL, and we do have another laborer that's in training right now to get his. I'm meeting with Holly Asphalt this afternoon. The oil prices did rebid, and they went down $170 a ton from last year, which is going to be a big help. The bad news I've got, that $50 million local government transportation fund that we got a piece of the pie last year was not funded this year. George Dodge, who is the director of the local government relations, I was hoping to have here next month, but he emailed me this morning and said he had another commitment that he had to do in Carlsbad, so gave him another date in April for have him to come down and talk to you all. Now that the session is over, he's kind of the liaison between the state and the local entities, and he can kind of give us an update on all the funding that's going to be available, what their plans are, because it's already kind of changed from what my affiliate meeting was in Santa Fe. So hopefully they'll have some updates on what's going to go on for the next year for us. Other than that, it's just business as usual down at the road department.
I have two questions. First one is, it seemed like there were some bills that were going to add road money to the budget this year. Did any of those pass? Is there new money this year for roads?
From our affiliate meeting, there was supposed to be, but like I said, this was one of them that was hoping to get done, and it doesn't look like it does. So I don't know if there's going to be some more changes. Like I said, since the session is over, they kind of know now where the money's going to go. So I'm hoping I can get George down here and to talk to everybody and let us know what's really going to go on. Oh, man.
So the second question is, I remember us talking about the price of oil, how high it was. Any idea how much the lower price is going to save us?
How much what?
So the lower prices per ton is going to save us? Or how much more road you can do as a result?
That's what it would be Albert Short. I'm actually working on the LGRF for next year. And I've got everything ready, but I knew they were rebidding this contract, so I wanted to get a hard price on it before I bring it to the county manager to have her sign on it. So hopefully we won't have to cut out any roads like we did last year on there. I'm kind of hoping too, because one of the things they did tell us in the affiliate that there was supposed to be more money for the LGRF. I based it off what we got last year, which is what I usually do. And usually if there is, they'll write us a letter. It's going to be one of them rush things that says it's got to be done by this time. So I'm kind of hoping that that's going to happen again this year. But like I said, it might change too.
So we're waiting on the mailman then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Thanks. Mr. Chairman, are you going to include in your report some of the answers to Alicia's questions?
I wasn't going to give you a full report. I'm hesitant to do that until the governor signs.
Okay.
I could talk about a lot of things that have passed and where things are, but it really doesn't. It really doesn't matter
It's
until
not
she
final
signs or vetoes or pocket vetoes.
The special 590,000 or so, did that not get signed already?
I believe that's
Yeah.
what, because I've seen that, and so we did receive that money, 150,000 to go toward, or 150,000
yeah.
to go towards Airport Road, and that will take care of a lot of our engineering costs on that. From what I understand from some of them that I read, there was several different versions around changing up the way that LGRF funding works, and the way that one of the bills that I saw that was moving through both houses does allocate more funds towards that. And I think there was so much confusion last year over, and it was done differently in different districts on the 50 million, that they backed away from that until they can get their processes straight at the state level of how that money can be used. There was a lot of confusion in the way that was done last year, so it made sense that they pulled that back. But I did see some additional funding going towards LGRF stuff, so hopefully we'll see some more money there. And I haven't seen any indications that the governor would veto any of those. She's been a big proponent of road improvements, whether it's county or state, so hopefully she'll sign all of those bills.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question to that. So they pulled back the 50 million. Did that get reallocated to the LGRF?
I can't answer that question. I don't know
Okay.
what they did with it.
All right.
I haven't tried to track it through
Yeah.
House Bill 2 to see where it is. But.
Okay. So we'll have
I'll give you
that'll come by the March meeting.
Yeah,
Is
I'll
the
give you a full
21
report at the
days or
March meeting
what,
on
first week of
bills that
March?
I was tracking.
That's what I was gonna ask. What's her deadline?
21 days. What's the deadline?
What's the date?
I have it. I don't remember the exact date.
Must be like the 11th.
11th,
Something
yeah,
like that?
10th,
Sounds
11th.
about right.
11 or 12, something like that. Well, I lied. I thought I had it on my calendar.
Yeah, but I think it
It's
is.
the-
They
I think it's the
sound about
11th.
right, somewhere in there, so we're good.
Is that business days or calendar days?
Calendar days.
Any other questions for Mrs. Moore? Thank you. Go ahead. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'll start off by talking about the County Wildfire Protection Plan. The process is moving pretty rapidly. Right now, it's in the core team's hands for review. They'll need submittals, any type of changes by the 27th of this month, which is Thursday. That's the core team, and I want to thank all of those people: Forest Service, BLM, State Forestry, the Land Office, Grant County Fire, Silver Fire, Association of Counties, for participating in the County Wildfire Protection Plan. It is supposed to be in place by June 30th, so you'll see we're way ahead of that. I want to thank SWCA, Environmental Consultants, who's working on that for us. So at the end of the 27th, it'll go out for public review on March 2nd, and that'll be out for 2 weeks, which will end March 16th. And we did some print media, also be on Facebook, also be on our county webpage for people to review, for the public to review and make any comments at that time. It'll go back to SWCA for final, and then we'll bring it in front of you for approval. Hopefully by May. I would think sometime in the May meeting, if not for sure June. We have until June 30th to finish the plan, so it's moving pretty rapidly. I want to thank everybody for that. Airport, hopefully moving towards fire season, going to start working with the base out there, Forest Service Air Base, and see what the resources are going to be like moving forward. I know the Forest Service is here, but trying to get our annual meeting with them going. Fuel is rapidly, we're in the process of we got a fuel truck that's down, but it's not hindering the operations. We've got another truck there, so hoping to get that fixed today or tomorrow, I believe. On the fire side, we had, since January, we had 2 structure fires, one off of Highway 190, which was a pellet stove or wood stove, got up in the attic and started a fire. We were able to get to that. Tyrone, Whiskey Creek, we were able to pretty much save as much as we could within the living room area, so I want to thank them for that. We also had one off of 180, which was some grass burning, got away and burned an outbuilding, a garage area. So Silver Fire and Tyrone, we assisted Silver Fire on that one. So and then we had we've had 2 grass fires already. So one was in Hatchita off Highway 90, off of Highway I-10. That was about 20 acres, and Tyrone was on that. And then we just had one couple weeks back, which was in the Fort Baird area on Forest Service land, and we assisted them, Fort Baird. That I think believed to burn 70 acres. How? Who knows? It was pretty muddy. So we had a pretty tough time of getting vehicles around in there, but we were able to maintain it, and Forest Service was on it pretty quickly. Maintenance department just continuing to do what they do is the maintenance on all of our facilities. Of course, Fort Baird is just the basic maintenance, cleaning trash and getting ready to amp up for the weeds as they start coming up. We did have an outage on Ridge Road, a power outage. So the generator kicked on at the detention center. And so we were able to watch that. I got with Jason. We went out there 3 hours in. We went out and checked it. Everything was working just fine. So it actually ran for 6.5 hours. So that was pretty good. So Jason got out there and did a quick maintenance on it while it was running. I don't think anybody at that facility even knew that the electricity was out. So I want to thank him and his staff. He does have a contract with Caterpillar. They do a better job. I shouldn't say a better job. They do a more efficient job with the services that they provide for us, where they test the fuel, they test the oil, they test the coolant. It's an annual, once a year. They do a test on it. So with that facility, we think that is super important to make sure that runs anytime that we lose electricity out there. Other than that, unless you have any questions, that's basically all I really have right now.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Randy, so this 70-acre grass fire, it's so muddy that you can't get the trucks around? What?
Well, it was pretty muddy, but there's Crumley Road, and then there's the Forest Road that it was pretty much going to stop it. There was a boundary there, but we didn't realize how muddy it was on the surface there as we got in.
So was it human caused?
I can't answer that. I'm sure it had to do something with that. It was pretty wet out there. How it got started, I don't believe there was any lightning. I don't want to speak for the Forest Service, but it's their property. But I would assume so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Just real quick, Tyrone EDA, the work is continuing. We had some extra funds in there, so we've been able to expand the scope to get some additional sidewalks and curbs added. So that extends their days of work out there. But just had a visit from the Tyrone Property Owners Association. They were very pleased with Deming Excavating that's doing the work out there. Said they've been professional. They've been working diligently at it, and they're pretty excited over what's being done out there. I can't hit this enough. The census. The go live date is March 12th. We are planning to have a computer in my office as one that the public can come in and take the census. The other municipalities, at least the smaller ones, Santa Clara, Baird, Hurley, all plan to do the same. The website is grantcountycensus.com. I believe it can also be reached at .gov. And that will have all of the locations once we get them all finalized. We're working on some kiosks. Priscilla Lucero let me know that I think it's the Income Support Division will have their own kiosks, but we're also looking at maybe putting one at the Department of Health, maybe HMS, just trying to finalize some of that as we're doing that through the Complete Count Committee. So again, just I'm trying to get that word out. And then the bigger media campaign will get started as we get closer. Randy talked about the airport in terms of fire, but I wanted to just mention that the terminal construction, we're still on target with the date. And we've had some change orders that have gone on out there, but it has not affected the contractor's ability to still keep on track and on schedule. So we're hoping to have that ready to be moved back into beginning of April. So we're still on target with that. I'll talk about Airport Road and North Hurley Road. We are hoping to have both of those bid out in March, probably middle to the end of March, so we can get those bid out at the same time. And we've already had some interest from people calling Earl to see when that's going to happen, so that's a good thing for us.
So we're talking about phase 3? Phase
So
2?
for North
Planned?
North Hurley, this will be phase 2 construction. This is the funding that we got from the 50 million last year, and then of course Airport Road.
Okay.
That we're working on. So the phase 3 design is one that I put into the Colonias applications. The Water Trust Board, which we have Bandoni, we've been recommended for the funding on that. Excuse me. Still waiting on the final recommendations, which is May 7th. Once we have those final recommendations, we can start gearing up to get that one out to bid, because those designs the plans are done on that one. And just to let you know, if you're interested, I have some initial designs in my office for the Baton Park CDBG ADA that you're welcome to come and take a look at. And Hachita Volunteer Fire Department, when we originally started looking at that, we had some horrendous price quotes getting upwards of $750,000. We've been working with Chief Groves and Randy, and we've been working on a smaller building to get them an office, restroom, and training room, and now we're working on getting them a metal building for the bays. So we're quite a bit less right now. I think before we get the concrete for the bays, we're about $120,000 in. So that's a much better price tag for Hachita. So I just wanted to bring that up. I'll stand for any questions.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
When would we be notified about the $65,000 for the trails at Baton Park?
I know that they're being reviewed right now by the committee, but I don't know. I don't have a date as to when that is.
When the notification is.
Not off the top of my head. I probably have an email in my inbox that told me from when I put the application out, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
Will you follow up on that, please? Just
Sure will.
Send it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, two things. On the Hachita station and the fire that was there, how long did it take Tyrone to get down there with its current facility?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Brown, we have resources down there at Hachita already.
Oh, okay. They just don't have
a leasing a facility
a place.
from State Highway DOT. So we have vehicles and we have resources and we have members down there. So yes, we did send a resource from here down there, a truck with 4 firefighters on it. It probably took about maybe 45 minutes to get down there. Based on, they still got to, just because they're an emergency, they still got to follow the speed limits. But Hachita was able to get on it. We have enough personnel down there that we were able to get to it pretty quickly. And then as the resources come, and if we have to, we have an agreement with Hidalgo County along with Luna County. So
that was my next question.
Yeah, resources are available in those areas, in those situations. So I don't think it's that big of a problem yet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And the second is a clarification about the census. Misha, you mentioned your computer is available. It can be done on any computer that has connection to the internet, right?
Yes.
So they can go to libraries, they can go to Western, right? Okay, I just wanted to clarify, they don't have to actually invade your office.
No, they
to
don't.
Do this.
We're trying to get all the areas, but you are correct, Commissioner Brown, that all the libraries, those are going to be ones that we're going to advertise on the website. Also, we're going to have some posters up that say, you can take the census here. So yeah, we're trying to get all that information out. I just want you, as commissioners, to be aware that we are putting one in this building that will be available for the public also.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
So I have a follow-up question to that. Are you guys working with the food distribution sites to do the census work?
Good idea.
Chairman, Commissioner Edwards, we have had discussion with the one out in Cliff. I can't remember who it is that's on Barrett. That's what I thought. Barrett was at the last meeting, and we are hopeful that one of the kiosks will be at the HMS center there in Cliff Gila. And Barrett has indicated that when they do the food distribution, they would like to remove it from the medical center and take it to the food distribution, because those do work off of a cell tower. so we don't have to have Wi-Fi for them, and then they would have it available for those days. I did ask her if she can communicate with the ones that do it out at Baton Park, and I'm hoping that the next meeting she'll have a little answer for me on that, to see if we need to get one out there when they're doing the food distribution there also.
So there's 8 or 9 food distributions in the county per month.
Okay.
There would be a great place to have somebody to have a way to do that, because there's senior distributions, there's distributions that are specifically aimed at WIC moms. There's some pretty specific populations that you could reach if somebody was doing that at every food distribution.
And these are specific locations that they all congregate to that we could have a kiosk at?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you say a kiosk, do you just mean a computer that is going to do that?
It'll be an iPad. SkyWest Media has 2 of them currently. We've been working at the funds to be able to rent those during the time frame through the grant that we got. If we need additional kiosks, they are willing to purchase some others. So they've got they're a free a stand that holds it up, and then it'll have a backdrop to it that says what it's for, and then it's an iPad that's put in there. It's ideal if it runs off of a Wi-Fi, but like I said, it can run off of the Verizon cell tower. So we just have to coordinate that to make sure we've got cell service if we don't have Wi-Fi for it.
So we could talk about this more offline.
Sure.
But I'd be happy to help make sure that happens.
Okay, and I will, I'm trying to remember when the meeting is. I think it's March 4th, but I have to look at my calendar, and I'll let you know.
The next census meeting.
The next census meeting, and we have it at the annex building in the upstairs conference room.
Mr. Chair.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one more. Actually, I wanted to go back to Randy. I'm sorry, I didn't think of this earlier, but are we going to get a report from Rebecca soon about airport? And the reason I'm asking is Advanced Air has been in place for a year and a month now. It strikes me they might have statistics about employments that I'd like to know about.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Brown, yes. I was actually supposed to report that, and I left it on my desk, so I was going to give her the opportunity next commission meeting to
That
come in
works.
and
There's no
do
hurry.
a report for you.
As far as I'm concerned, they're doing a fabulous job still.
Yeah, and I
Just
think
great.
I think continuing moving forward with the fuel sales and stuff, they are not buying fuel anywhere else, no matter where they fly. Their fuel is coming from Grant County Airport, and that's what we really appreciate it. And so, yes, she will be here to give you a full report.
Thank you.
Chairman, Commissioners, I just want to let you know it is on March 3rd, the Complete Count Committee meeting at 10 a.m. I mean, March 4th. Sorry, it's March 4th. Can't be on March 3rd.
What day is
I have
it,
nothing.
Misha?
March 4th. I know we wanted to have it prior to the March 12th go live date. So yeah, I just looked at my calendar, and it is March 4th, 10 a.m. at the annex upstairs conference room.
It's also a sentence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I have a few items. I signed a small agreement to engage the UNM architectural students to work on a rendering for the Baton Park Memorial. I mentioned in a previous meeting of a group of citizens who came forward and had some really great ideas to enhance that memorial. So I signed that agreement a couple weeks ago. We'll be scheduling some meetings with that group, taking them out to the site. They are very excited about working on that, so that'll give us some ideas of how to enhance that memorial and make it worthy of what it should stand for. So that's moving forward. We interviewed for the executive assistant position last week. Renee made an offer yesterday afternoon, just waiting to see if we get that back. I had 15 applicants for the HR director. So we're doing some background checks on some of those, and we'll be scheduling those interviews very soon. as you all know, the passing of Buddy Howard, who was our animal control officer, who actually worked with the Humane Society. I've had conversation with Heidi Ogos, and they will not be filling that position. That was a real luxury for Grant County to have that relationship. It's really not technically a duty of the Humane Society to provide animal control. So Renee is working on developing a job description for an animal control officer. We've had conversation with the Sheriff's Department about locating that position within their department. We'll be looking at pay scales. Also, I will be looking at a similar type agreement that the town of Silver City has with the Humane Society for all of the different activities that come along with that. We were very fortunate to have that, but like I said, that's just one of those cases where we were fortunate to have it, but that's not normal circumstances for a Humane Society to do that. So we will be working on that. I will have to have that in place when our contract term ends with the Humane Society, because they will not be providing those services. I told her if I could get it accomplished prior to that, I would do my best. But so in July, if we intend to have county animal control, it will be under our roof. So just want to give you just a little bit of notice on that. So as I have more information, I'll bring that to you of what we're thinking. I had the opportunity to meet with the new fleet manager with Hatchford a couple weeks ago. He's familiar with state contract pricing, how that actually works, fleet pricing, and has indicated that they can be competitive with state contract pricing. I told him we would give him a shot. The next time we needed to purchase something, he understood how it worked and was quite alarmed that we were seeing the prices that we were from the previous dealer. So I'm excited to see how that'll work out. That'll give us the opportunity to purchase local, but it also be advantageous and a wise way to spend our money instead of spending more money just for the sake of doing local business. So very nice man, seems very knowledgeable. I attended Colonius Day on the 13th. That was a hopping day in the Capitol that day. Got to have a conversation with all of our legislators prior to the last week of the session. I felt like it was a good day. We had a Southwest New Mexico collaborative meeting last week. We heard reports from all the working groups. And one of the things that we will begin working on is it's the next step of the process is engaging non-government partners as well as interested community members. So we'll be working on that structure and how that works so that we can engage those other than just the local governments who have been involved in that process. So it's just taking those steps, and so we're getting there with that. So our next meeting we'll be working on that. The IDP project for the jail, Mike mentioned the discharge planner. That is funded through the IDP project. That's not county funds. We had a modified act training yesterday that was, I found it rather intriguing. It's very interesting. So we had a lady who used to be with UNM's program who came down. She's an expert on ACT and gave us a modified training on that, because that's one of the components. Ours is actually FACT, which is the forensic component of that, but there's not one in existence in New Mexico. That was the huge part of our project that we're really suffering with the loss of Dr. Bowen. But we're still continuing to work through that to see how we can to make that happen.
Could you explain ACT?
Assertive community treatment.
Assertive community treatment.
Mm-hmm. It's a very intensive treatment program that the only suitable candidates for that are those who do not do well in any other. If you've done well in any other type of treatment setting, then you're not a candidate for this. So it's a very intense, very one-on-one type treatment program. It goes so far as taking them grocery shopping, making sure that they can have interaction with the cashier. I mean, it's that intense. If they didn't show up for their appointments, the caseworker may drive to their home and say, "Why are you not at your appointment?" It's very intense, and there are certain criteria, behavioral health criteria, that they have found that is suitable. for this particular program. So it targets a whole different population, and some of those are which we see continually through our detention center. So we're still working very hard at that. And the last time I talked to Dr. Bowen, there was reoccurring funding in House Bill 2 for this program next year. Unless something's changed, that has not been diluted, and the same pilot counties will have the opportunity to continue to move our programs forward next year. So I was excited to hear that, and fingers are crossed that that doesn't get line item out of the budget. I hope not. I have been asked to participate in the Grant County Healthcare Workforce Development Committee. This is a partnership with the Center for Health Innovations. Dr. Ann Egan, who did the senior plan, is facilitating these discussions. And this is actually a component of the senior plan around lack of healthcare workforce. And so it is taking those recommendations from that plan and trying to develop a implementation plan to deal with the lack of healthcare workers in our community, especially those specialty type healthcare workers that our seniors need in our community. So that should be an interesting project. It looks to be about a 6-month commitment. So as we continue to meet on that, I'll bring those reports to you as well. I would say we were very fortunate in looking at how we fared on capital outlay. Every one of our projects received some type of funding, and that's always good news to see. March 11th is the deadline. If it's not signed, it's pocket vetoed. That's calendar niece. And then May 20th is the date of enactment unless it has an emergency clause or some other date specified in the bill. Usually everything goes into effect May 20th. I did text Priscilla about the Freeport for the trails, that funding application. She said March 15th, but that's a Sunday. So somewhere around March 15th, we should receive some sort of notification on that. And as I mentioned earlier, I intend to give you a full legislative report in March at the March meeting. Unless you want something in writing prior to that, I can get that out to you. So
I think would be good with just a report. I think we have the writings on it. We just don't have the signatures, so yes.
Okay, so that concludes my report. I'd stand for any questions you might have.
Real quick question. Do you know how our animal control stuff's going right now? Is it who's picking it up, or who's?
So staff from the Humane Society is still continuing to perform those duties, and the Sheriff's Department is stepping in where needed. So they're continuing to fulfill their contract, but she just gave me plenty of notice to say at the end of this contract we'll no longer be providing those services for you. And like I said, that's completely understandable. I told her I would do my best to see if I could make it happen before then.
Okay, because as commissioners, we do get a lot on roads, and we also get a lot about the animal control part of it. So, to me, going under the county, I don't have a problem with that, just seeing how it goes. But the other part, the other thing is, and I'm really happy that what's being done at Baton Park, I'm glad you're taking the lead on that and doing that. Just as a reminder, the commission was my fellow commissioners are graceful enough to give us $35,000 for that. And is that you planning on using some of that money for the works of whatever you guys are planning, or?
So when I said small contract, it was really small, like $5,000. I took that out of a professional services line that we have.
Okay.
And so what I was looking for was to hopefully have their renderings complete so we could start looking at that for next year's budget and try to figure out whether there's some, there might be some cultural funding out there, or grant funding, or if we need to include that in our budget to get that done. So it will take some time because we are using students.
Right.
So it doesn't happen as quickly as if we would have hired an architect, but I just think it's a really good program, and they're excited to work on it.
It is, and I've talked to some of them up there, but yeah, no, it's this money's there. I haven't really jumped into it because I've been waiting for, the stuff that's happening there, the ADA. I'm not sure how that's going to affect that, but no. I mean, that's what it's there, that's what we intended to use it, so use what you need to. What I would like to do is, if you don't mind, is being there with you. I'd like to hear their ideas and what they want to do with that. If you can let me know, and maybe I can attend it and see what they have to say. Because my ultimate goal is just, getting it done, and I'm open to ideas of how they want to do it. So as long as something gets done, I'm good with it.
That was the plan, to have you in those meetings.
Thank you.
I'd like to.
And you as well, sure.
And thank you for your report. Any other questions for County Manager?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So the IDP is paying for the discharge planner now. Yay, we're going to get funding to pay for it next year. But beyond that, we're going to either have to find the money in the budget for it, continue to find grants for it, hope that the legislature funds stuff like that, or let it go, basically, right? So I assume that part of the reporting in the project is to evaluate the success of that discharge planner. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So it seems to me like, based on what Mike has said and what the conversations that I've had with both of you, that this discharge planner is a hugely important member of the detention center staff that will really make a difference for people that are going there. So
That is correct.
great.
Any other questions? Thank you. We don't have any other county reports, right? Okay. Moving on to next item on the agenda, presentations. Moving down to item B, Youth Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition. Karina?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'd like to introduce Karina Castillo with the Youth Substance Abuse Prevention Council. Sheriff Gomez and I have been working very closely with her on a number of programs that she is developing, which include everything from public meetings and appearances for dissemination of very important information on this subject to actual recommendations and implementation of some functional and operational changes within our agency as we deal with these issues, not only in the field, but in the follow-up with the multiple agencies that form the coalition. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Ms. Castillo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and Lieutenant Burns, thank you so much for that introduction. The purpose for me being here today is really to share what the coalition is, who we are, what we're doing currently, and hopefully how we can gain some of your support as we continue on. So the coalition has been in place for several years, since 2013. It has undergone some different changes, so we'll just kind of focus on what's going on right now. So our coalition, as our name does say, we do deal with youth, but we do deal with them in environmental strategies. So what that means is that we deal with laws, policies, and social norms, changing those in the community, so they do take much longer, but generally tend to have a longer lasting effect in the entire community. Right now, we are funded by the State Office of Substance Abuse Prevention to work on 2 goals in the community, and the reason it's these 2 goals is because of data showing that these are the issues that have been occurring in the community. One is to reduce underage drinking among the 12 to 20-year-old population, and our second goal is to reduce prescription drug misuse and abuse in 12 to 25-year-olds, and that's primarily opioid prescriptions or drug misuse. So right now we do have 3 strategies that the coalition is working on in regards to underage drinking prevention. The first one that Lieutenant Burns kind of touched on briefly is working with law enforcement, collaborating with them as much as possible, supporting the great work that they're already doing. Second is we do try to work with the local public schools and the university to develop and strengthen their current ETOD policies, and that's alcohol, tobacco, and other drug policies in the school. And then we also do have a media campaign for their broader community to increase the awareness of fourth-degree felony. Right now, it's primarily on the provision of alcohol to minors, so buying or providing alcohol to minors. Just reminding the community of the consequence of that action, and that kind of ties into changing the social norms in the community around that. For opioid misuse, right now we are working with the 60 plus population in the community to restrict social access that way. Prior data has shown that our young people are obtaining opioid drugs and other painkillers through potentially their grandparents, older relatives, that type of thing. So just really educating that population on the importance of not sharing, the importance of locking up those types of prescriptions and disposing of them safely. And then also we are working with a few local pharmacies to just really enforce that they're sharing that information with their patients who do receive those prescriptions. And they already do, they're already doing a great job of just providing any support, any literature, any additional resources that they might need or want. And how these outcomes are measured and how we can justify if what we are doing is working or not working and how we can change it. The first is the New Mexico Community Survey that our coalition does do every spring, or every late winter, early spring. So the end of February to the end of April, so it's happening right now, actually. And what it is, it's a pretty lengthy survey that's given to 18-year-olds and older only regarding alcohol and opioid questions. It's their use and also their perceptions of these things in the community. And then we do also use complementary data for our younger population who are under 18, and that's the Youth Risk and Resiliency Survey, and that's also just to gauge their patterns, what they're seeing and what they're doing. And then I did also just want to invite you all to our next coalition meeting, which is this Thursday, the 27th at 12 p.m. It is generally the fourth Thursday of the month at the HMS conference room. We do have different presentations and just updates on what the coalition is doing and needing to do. And I don't know if you have any questions. My contact information is available.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Commissioner Brown?
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. One of the earlier slides had, it was labeled A1D, but I don't know that you have to go back there. It included mention of eliminating zero tolerance policies that I don't think you actually talked about. But that makes sense to me, but I wondered if you would explain the rationale for eliminating those policies.
Yeah, so our real strategy over that is just really developing and strengthening those policies in general. Sometimes schools, and not just here locally, but across the state, are not ready to eliminate zero tolerance. And so what zero tolerance policies are in regards to alcohol, tobacco, or other drug issues is that if they're caught with any of those items, they're automatically expelled, or suspended, I should say, first, and then expelled if it becomes a pattern. And the reason and the research behind trying to eliminate these policies is because that really just does not give them any type of wait for treatment, wait for help. It's just sending them home or wherever, potentially back to the same situation and the same access for those things.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? So no? Okay, thank you for everything you do. Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
So moving on to the next item on the agenda, C, Gila National Forest and Ranger District updates. Beth, Krista.
Good morning. So, Krista, Kevin, because I sent my handout this morning. Should I just pass it out?
You can, it is in their agenda packet, but by all means.
Okay, so if they already have it, you guys have.
We still need those.
Okay, no worries.
There's something indicating sometimes nothing.
The work session agenda.
You have one?
It's still needed.
How am I going to tell them this one?
Or we just need Kevin to tell us.
But it is in your packet.
Yeah, now I see it.
Thanks.
The bar on the side, there was something.
Do I have enough?
Yeah, unfortunately, I just found that out this morning. I have to report it, but you can still get to it through the agenda.
Are we on?
You're on.
Red means on, okay. Good morning, Chairman Ponce and Commissioners. I want to introduce myself as well, and administrators of departments and Sheriff's Office. Good morning, everybody. I want to introduce Krista Osborne. Also, she's our Recreation Program Manager for the Gila Forest. I am Beth Eiley. I'm the Silver City District Ranger. We have a handful of, this is just like updates, business items that are coming up or in the works, have been going on for a while. So it's just kind of like a laundry list, and be welcome to stop me if you say, hey, what about that? So anyway, just a brief update on our forest plan revision process. I was hoping to get a forest plan revision person here. So they basically gave me the lowdown. We had meetings. They ended not last week, the week before, and they went to 7 or 8 different communities. We had about 185 people. We included Las Cruces in our tour of the forest plan, and part of the way the forest plan information was presented was trying to help people figure out how to make comments on such a document. And so if you attended the meetings, there was this kind of working through issues and how you comment on them. And so they are definitely trickling in, the comments, and they are due on April 16th. So that was what they told me I was allowed to say. So I'm not supposed to ad lib. Anyway, the second item is we are currently operating under an injunction related to the Mexican spotted owl. Being sued and having an injunction, as you probably know, some of you, is 2 different things. And so in our world, the injunction means unless we had a project approved in negotiation with the plaintiff, approved by a judge, those projects are not, we're not allowed to proceed with them if they involve the cutting of standing green trees. So at this moment, people can cut, yes they can, cut personal use firewood as long as they're following our cutting instructions. And then we had an approved list of projects that was approved before end of December. So right now we have a couple of prescribed burning projects in our valley. One is Bar 6 and one is Jaybird. Bar 6 would be spring and Jaybird would be fall. The Gattens Park CFRP project can go forward because it was approved, or at least portions of it. And they are, my understanding is there's work going on in there. We are able to do thinning around Little Cherry, thin and pile, small project area. What we are starting to see is the other affected projects coming in. Like we have a trailhead that we wanted to construct, and it has green trees, so we cannot construct that trailhead. If we have trail, it's the one in Little Walnut. Yeah. I mean, we can take down shrubs, but we can't cut trees. So anyway, there's some how would you say, unintended consequences, I think, of that action. But as we move forward, hopefully we will get another suite of projects approved, and we're hoping to see our recreation projects go forward. But no word at this moment. So if there's no questions on those 2 topics, I was going to shift gears to the recreation topics, because they tend to be, it's a forest-wide conversation, and then the rest of my stuff here is basically Grant County and local. So
Bar 6?
It's in the boroughs.
It's in the boroughs.
North of the highway and on the west side of the Continental Divide.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So, Krista? Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So my section, I'm going to be going over the recreation projects. And so, Harry, the answer to your question, it is the Continental Divide trailhead that is at the end of Little Walnut Road.
Yep.
And we're calling it the Little Walnut Gomez Peak trailhead. And so we're looking for Plan B because we still want to move forward with that project. And so we're coming up with some options. And so the idea is to get it done before the Grant County Trail Days, Continental Divide Trail Days that's coming up in April, but unfortunately, we won't be able to do that at this time. But we'll keep folks posted of our Plan B scenario. The two items that I'm going to be going over real quick is we'll be implementing in our fiscal year October 1st, which our fiscal year 2021. We'll be implementing our National Visitor Use Monitoring Survey. This is a survey that we implement, or the National Forests implement every 5 years. And so we're getting in our fifth cycle, and this is our fifth time of implementing this survey, and so they'll be implemented next year, starting October 1st. And then our big one, and which hopefully you received in your packet, a press release of our statewide 5 Forest New Mexico fee proposal. You should have gotten a press release with that. We did the press release back in January, and this is a big project that we are moving forward statewide. So all national forests in the state of New Mexico are moving forward with our fee proposal. And we're starting our public engagement piece of this project, which started January and will go through the end of December. And so we're really asking folks to, what services and amenities are you wanting at your developed rec sites on national forest lands? And then I would like to ask the chairman and commission members if you'd like me to come back on another meeting agenda to present a PowerPoint with more detailed information about that proposal.
Yes, if you could, please.
Okay, thank you.
All good? Yes. Okay. She wanted to do it today. No. Okay, we have 2 reclamation projects going on in the county. The Georgetown project, which is up east of the private land in the Georgetown area. It's the removal and basically placement into a landfill area with a cover in the Georgetown area, and then Royal John Mine Phase 2. So they did the bulk of the work last year, but they didn't quite complete it. So if you have specific things on that, the project manager works out of the Albuquerque office, and I can direct him, and we can make contact on that. So we're going to be back up there. Okay. We haven't heard details either, and I don't even know if it's the same contractor as last year. So I know that Georgetown had to go out to bid. So, okay. We have 2 mineral projects that we'll be working with Freeport-McMoRan on that are on the forest. No specifics yet, other than when they walk in the door, they're a priority for us. In the world of hard rock minerals and the Forest Service, our regulations require us to be responsive on what our path forward is, at least within 30 days. So when we see a proposal from them, we start immediately working on that. Yeah, there's a variety of paths, but we have to be responsive on those. And then we have cooperative project work that we do with them. So that's the good thing. We have a handful of projects we're doing cooperatively with the county. We looked at the CWPP. Excellent. Ellen Brown is putting together all of our comments, but I took a read on it. Very thorough. Good graphics.
Wildfire prevention.
They did a good job. Yeah. Shooting range, I know that was a topic in the past, but the permit's in place and people are shooting away, as far as I understand. So anyway, it's a good place for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Landscape risk assessments, those are our annual spring prep with the local fire chief and our staff to basically game out what we're seeing as the weather situation, the condition of fuels, fire staffing, kind of game up a response to initial response, and we already have one out to shoot. And boy, that was a good one, huh? So anyway, we're also appreciative of the road work. We get out a lot, and I realize county roads some people make a lot of noise about them and some of them don't. We appreciate the cooperation we get. We notice where they're working, and they're very, how would you say, low profile, doing good work. So thank you for that. Let's see, our wildfire response resources locally here, our hotshot crews start in 2 weeks. The overhead management is on. We have a helicopter crew standing up at Hurley in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Our engines are, we have folks still arriving for our engine crews. We don't have all our permanent employees on with that yet. And we're going to be making, I understand, some changes in dispatch, and I don't exactly know what they are. You might know better, so I'll leave it at that. But the fire world, this is the time of the year where things start to crank up. We're still doing permanent hiring for the fire crews on other parts of the forest. We were pretty much met our hiring objectives in December for the Silver City District. So our spring burn that we have on tap it's not C-bar, it's bar 6, and that's my mental block. So that's the one that's on tap. We need pretty dry conditions for that. It involves helicopter ignition. That could be a real interesting observational fire, prescribed burn to do. We don't know what the conditions will be yet, so we're looking way deeper into the spring than currently. So we'll let you guys know if that one looks like it's coming up, because we'll have to have an article in the paper and meet with the VFDs and all that kind of good stuff. General support of the volunteer fire departments, their education, outreach efforts, and the things that we trade to stand up our response efforts. And trails and recreation, our first permanent trail crew person in 2 years is starting. She should be here tomorrow, and we'll start Thursday. And then we have crew members that we are working on hiring. And so we actually had the vacancy announcement, and hopefully we'll receive those applications so we can start the hiring process. They may not be able to actually be in place till June-ish, depending on how quick our HR departments can push all the buttons on those folks. Let's see. In the youth department, our Leroy and Gabe Holguin and others have been helping to stand up this year's cadre of Swift Crew, and they help with camp crew, and they can also be available to join firefighting crews to work on fires. And so their training is ongoing, and that program is a really important segue for local youth to move into potentially being applicants for temporary jobs and permanent fire jobs. And some of our permanent longtime firefighters came up through the Swift Crew. It's a really good program. So we also recently hired a year-round permanent recreation technician, and in the past we've had temps that come and go, and you can never quite get them fully up to speed. So we're pleased to have that. That's Alex Torres, and maybe we'll get Alex in here one of these days and introduce you. He's a busy guy. He's a field guy. Let's see. I skipped around. The youth. Aldo Leopold, we have a couple of students that come in on Fridays, and they are shadowing and high school interns with the fire program. And we do educational cooperation with WNMU, as well as, we have Aldo Leopold YCC crews and things like that, which I think you're familiar with. The last thing I had was in range improvements world. We're working towards putting in a new well in the burrows this year. We've been working on a corral upgrade and ongoing fence line, and trying to get every year, if we can do 2 to 4 miles of new fence or significant repairs, because we have some significant work there. And then I just have one more heads up. I believe we got funding to replace the bridges on the North Star Mesa Road this year. And when bridges get replaced, they can end up affecting traffic. So be aware, there's definitely going to end up being news releases on that. But the North Star Mesa Road is important to a lot of people and members. So that's all I have this morning, and we're trying to keep it brief, according to Kevin. So. Got anything else for us?
Any questions? Commissioner?
Yeah, I kind of let your number 5 go by without asking, without stopping you at that point. The mineral projects with Freeport.
Yes.
And I might not have been paying enough attention. Are these exploration projects?
No. I don't know if you're familiar with the KB mine, which is a mineral materials mine on the way. Tom's here.
Yes.
It's
I was wondering if Tom was here for this
Santa
purpose.
Clara and the Chino mine, and it's off to the west. It's a closed road, but it's been an open mineral material.
It's a quarry, is that right?
It's a quarry-ish
Okay.
type of a site, and
Yeah.
it was previously Dan Maxwell. So they basically purchased Dan's project, their footprint, their operation at this point, same. The other project we have is we're working and we're meeting with the BLM. We had a meeting with Freeport, I think it was in January, and they're proposing to do an expansion project in the Tyrone mine. Doesn't change their footprint, but it changes how they would work on the national forest piece.
Okay, because they did have a public meeting about that, which they said it was all their land, not forest land.
If it's their mining claims on national forest
I
land.
must have misunderstood that.
Yeah. I mean, so when you're on national forest, their access to the minerals is through their unpatented mining claims.
Those are not patented then?
No. And that area was a previous project. It's not a new area and it's not new disturbed area. So it's changing up what they're doing in that area. And so until we have a specific proposal in writing, I don't have a proposal yet, but it's coming. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Tom, did you want us to know something?
No,
Okay, item G on the agenda, phase 2 of the assessor's parcel map correction.
Mr. Chairman, board member, while she's sitting up, I would just really would like to acknowledge her. She's done a fantastic job first coming into the assessor's office, and she actually took a course from UCLA. It was a 1.5 year long course, and I really got to give her a great acknowledgement about that. She received her certificate in the GIS, Geospatial Technology, and she did that on January of 2020, and this was a 1.5 year that she actually did this project and got her certificate. And like I said, I just want to really acknowledge that from Tracy Burnson. I really appreciate that. The last time we actually talked about phase 1 was on the date 12/11/19, and now she's actually going to give a breakdown on the parcel mapping correction on phase 2. And thank you very much, Charlene, for putting us on the agenda. Appreciate that.
So good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Administration, and public. I'm Tracy Burnset, as Raul said. And just in case you're not familiar with what I do here at the county, my core duties are to process deeds as they're recorded and adjust the parcel map. Going ahead here. And adjust the parcel map to keep an accurate ownership record for property valuation. So on the right, you can see the parcel map with the 47,000 plus tracts that make up the land of our county. So what exactly is the parcel map? Beginning in 1976, the assessor's office began keeping property records in a map format on Mylar sheets. The purpose was largely to prevent double assessment of property or assessing the same piece of land to two people by verifying property boundaries. So the title examiner or parcels mapper gets new deeds daily as they're recorded and draws out every bearing and distance from a legal description like the one shown on the right. Sometimes they can be pretty long. And I also assess title based on what we have in the county record. And the goal of this record has always been to provide taxpayers with fair and equitable property assessments based on the area of their deeded land. And the parcel map is for ad valorem tax purposes and general visualization only, but the information is shared as required with public information requests. And this is important to note because it's the data user's responsibility to be aware of the error and the danger in using data for other than what it was intended. And this is communicated with disclaimers in any data sharing, but because this is the only regularly updated countywide ownership data set, people use it anyway for other than what it was intended. So after seeing this happen often, I feel a responsibility to the taxpayers to provide the most accurate information possible. So finding property without a legal description. So if the parcel map is based on the legal description, then property owners should be aware of what a legal description is and what their boundaries are. But 99% of customers and employees even are not able to locate property by legal description because of the lack of mapping tools as well as the ability to read or decipher the language as written. So when a customer comes into the assessor's office, the majority of the time, the parcel map overlaid on Google or satellite imagery is their first look at our property record. When the parcel map, the upper right corner, the white on black, or the black on white, is overlaid on satellite or aerial imagery, the bottom right of the slide, the discrepancy between the two sets of data is alarming to property owners. For example, you can see that the pointed quarter of the property shown by the blue arrow is off by up to 120 feet to the southeast, and it puts it across the road in the McDonald's property down by US 180. So they're rightly alarmed if they think their neighbor's property line is in the middle of their house. So the differences also make it very difficult for appraisers to determine what new improvements, like a shed, might need to be valued with which property, and parcels can be off by up to 350 feet. So this slows the work efficiency of the 11 employees in the assessor's office on a daily basis with increased, more costly field visits. All of this erodes public confidence in their property record. So how did this happen? To begin to fix these discrepancies, the history of the data issues were examined and presented in depth in the first phase of the project. A couple of the commissioners didn't get that presentation, but so I wanted to just recap quickly on how the record ended up where it is. Parcels were made to fit based on the chain of title. So that's the person who has the oldest deed and claimed it first has title. So if differences in boundaries arise, the oldest or one there first trumps the new one. Another issue is that there are discrepancies between surveys and surveyors. Surveyors are human and have different methods, equipment, experience that may lead to survey caps for the same property corner differing by many feet. And a more minor issue is scrivener errors or errors writing the deeds. If someone tries to write their deeds without professional assistance or even with assistance, oftentimes there are errors in using an old legal description or making mistakes in transcription on the deed. Mylar drafting errors occurred here at the county in tiny shifts of lines or even the line thickness of when it's drawn, which can translate to many feet when digitized on a map. And also with the Mylar digitization, error was introduced in transferring a flat paper record to a curved digital projection, like how an orange peel cannot be made flat. The result was each land section, generally a mile square, with edges being more distorted than in the center because of fitting a flat surface to a round projection. The public land survey section, corners, this issue dates back to when the first government surveyor mapped out the county with a horse and wagon driving a 66-foot chain behind, setting the section corners. So by law, descriptions on deeds reference these corners, sections, township and range, government lots, mineral surveys, to tie it to a location within the county. So that's the starting point on the ground. And it has been minimally corrected and presents major discrepancies sometimes. It's been corrected more up in the northern part of the state, but they haven't made their way down this far. So to a much lesser degree, there's also error in rectifying or placing aerial imagery on a map. In mountain areas, when images are stitched together, based on the angle of the photo, distortion can occur from the base of steep terrain to the top. So what can be done to best resolve the discrepancies? So during the first phase of the project presentation, 4 different options were presented to address these issues to the Commission: the contracted spatial adjustment, and the parcel fabric, correction utilizing current county employees, and the 4th option to hire a parcel map correction employee. And the Commission chose to fund option 2 by approving the assessor budget line item to contract the spatial adjustment and parcel fabric conversion. $113,398 of that was funded. So to address the data issues in a sustainable way, in a way that it addresses the underlying accuracy, the most populated areas of the county were addressed first by digitizing subdivision plats to their platted measurements. And you can see Bohanna Houston's work in the slide. This provides an accurate legal title starting point with measurements that are preserved in the parcel fabric, and this tracks the history of any changes from these original measurements. This also assists municipalities with accurate platted right-of-way measurements. So parcel data is regularly shared with the town of Silver City and is available to any other municipality if they have a GIS system. By transferring parcels into a parcel fabric, parcels act together like a piece of stretchy fabric. If a new, more accurate survey point is located, the parcels can all be pulled together to use that point. Original measurements as entered are preserved, but the map geometry is updated. And this allows the parcels to be updated with less employee time and allow the parcel map accuracy to increase with current staffing. So right now the parcels function as fixed pieces that all have to be cut and merged and adjusted individually, requiring much more time to edit or update. So this phase addresses 20,907 polygons, which are a lot of the accounts have multiple tracks, and 15,236 assessor accounts, which is around 58% of all accounts. And the scheduled completion date of phase 1 is April 17th of 2020, so I can't wait to get this new data. So what happens after this? We got the phase 1 almost done. There is still the rest of the county outside of the subdivisions. So with subdivisions completely redrawn, the remaining surrounding county parcels will need to be adjusted to aerial imagery for increased accuracy. Areas like the Mimbres and the mineral surveys around the Chino mine have significant offsets. And as you can see in the slide, the offset can be up to 350 feet. The adjustment parcels were identified by section and can be seen as bright turquoise in the county map in the slide. These consist of 34.5% of total assessor accounts. So it's a fewer chunk of accounts than the first phase. And then 7.3% of the remaining accounts will not be adjusted because they're already parcels that are platted to section corners. They're usually the big kind of ranch land. So the second phase of adjustment to aerial imagery is more labor intensive because it requires point-by-point observations rather than batch digitizing from subdivision plats, and it's therefore a more costly process. So with the current contractor, they gave 2 general estimates and options for the remaining adjustments. Because they have other data tools, doing mass adjustments are more cost effective before merging everything into the parcel fabric, the stretchy fabric. Changes will still be noted, but not to the extent that the parcel fabric preserves the history. And that's the first option there, the $100,000 option. And this would delay delivery of any product for at least another year. The second option is to do everything after the first phase, but in the parcel fabric to preserve all the history of the changes. This costs more at $135,000 because of the limitations of using other tools in a parcel fabric for this type of mass update project. So I believe the $100,000 option, including gross receipts tax or contingency, would be sufficient. Other contractor rough quotes were similar and even slightly higher. So these estimates would be to contract all the work, take care of the whole county, the rest of the county, and be done with the correction for the foreseeable future. So when looking at the project in relation to other budgeting needs, it's important to remember what the parcel data is. Yes, specifically, its purpose is to keep an accurate ownership record so that properties are valued for appropriate acreage and taxes are applied and mailed to the correct person. If this isn't done correctly, the county loses the tax funding that keeps services operating. Generally, though, the parcel map is a core data set that affects so much more in the county. I mentioned before that this is the only regularly updated countywide ownership data set, and because of that, people request to use the data and rely on it in spite of its errors. I have local businesses request it because they can use it to analyze their market. I have large data businesses request it because they use it and sell it for apps like hunting apps to help hunters locate property boundaries. The mine comes in all the time to ask about correcting parcel boundaries because our record is the only comprehensive look at adjoining properties for projects and acquisition. Contractors for big projects like the wind farm regularly use the data to facilitate their projects and contact the appropriate property owners. Laws for public notice on certain projects require that property owners are contacted within distances of a project for comment, and the parcel data is used. Surveyors, real estate agents, title companies all have direct access to the data for use in their day-to-day business. So accurate parcel data also has so many uses that have not been utilized because of its current state of inaccuracy. Emergency services and potential to support increased response time is one very important area. So completing this project in full may just seem like an administrative function, but it really is essential. It increases efficiency, effectiveness, generates revenue, has cost savings avoidance, improves access, transparency, and accountability. Looking at putting it out there on the web so people can look for their property. And supports decision-making not just for the assessor's office, but has wide-reaching effects through county departments and the community. So when the parcel map was first created, the potential for what it could become and how it could be used was never envisioned. Once it's corrected with something other than a minimal fix, which we're in the process of, the data will be reliable moving forward and more useful for everybody. So I believe the assessor, Raul, is looking to submit one of these options for phase 2 as a budget item, but we'll be having further discussions about it. Thank you for your time and consideration. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner?
Thank you, Tracy. Might be difficult to explain this. I've had some difficulty following exactly how these adjustments are happening. I just have an intuition that there must be some cases where when you make adjustments, you end up changing the area, not just the geometry, but the actual area of certain parcels. Is that not true?
That is definitely true. So what the assessor's office does is go by the original record acreage as deeded. Unless the deed states specifically that there's been a change in that acreage, we continue to keep that valuation acreage. So the accuracy will be more in that it won't be alarming to look at for visual purposes.
So the actual acreage of a parcel will end up being different than the assessed acreage?
Yes, and that's how it is currently in the parcel map too. But hopefully as the parcel map gets corrected, it will get much closer to the deeded acreage over time with the increased accuracy of the actual map.
Is there some way to make reality match the paper as parcels get sold?
So the parcel fabric, when I go to enter in each of those boundaries, will preserve those measurements So I'll be able to see when I look at any given parcel what those deeded measurements are. And it'll show the difference between the map and those deeded measurements. So hopefully, over time, I'll be able to see that difference becoming smaller.
Okay, I'm not sure that answered my question, though. I think that's something that's going to happen anyway. It strikes me that there could be some way that over the course of, I don't know, 100 years or something, enough transactions would happen that the deeds would actually reflect the updated descriptions and so you would, at that point, there wouldn't be any property owner alarm because it would be identical.
Right, and it will move closer with the parcel fabric because I'll be able to, I'll see the more accurate measurements and be able to see as surveys come through also and be able to update real time in my workflow with that parcel fabric, that environment. It will move toward the ideal reflecting.
Yeah, okay, well, we're past my ability to envision things, I think, but yeah, I don't know. So let's say there's a parcel that the deed says is 10 acres, and you've got information that the assessed acreage is going to reflect the deed, but your new parcel shows that no, in fact, it's 11 acres, right? Just to choose numbers. Would it not be possible when that land is sold to make the deed reflect the actual modernized survey acreage?
It's kind of the other way around. Usually when there's a sale of property, the deed will be updated by a survey because there's just differences as they notice them going through over time. So that legal description will be updated on the deed.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I see them come through, I can notice those differences because I'll see the previous document too. And then with the mapping system before, it was hard to adjust anything to those new legal descriptions. But with the parcel fabric, because it's kind of stretchy, and you can move corners and you can prioritize boundaries.
Good idea.
You can actually map to those, that new legal description and kind of update it.
Okay.
But currently, it's not that easy. It's cutting little pieces of each of the parcels and trying to merge them together and pulling all the surrounding deeds for the other properties. And
all right, thank you, Tracy. Okay.
Well, I want to know where that extra acre went.
Right? You must have some sections that aren't 640 acres. But
right, yeah, most sections are not exactly 640.
yeah, who knows where they went?
Well, but if over time, one deed gets an acre,
right,
then it seems like it takes an acre away from the guy next door as you're fixing that.
That's why I threw my arms up.
Yeah, it's really, well, and I'm stuck on the picture of the road that is 350 feet off of the blue turquoise lines. Like, I can't even wrap my mind around that.
Yeah.
What is it telling me? It's telling me that where we recorded the road is 350 feet off of where we built the road?
No, so that's just the difference between two data sets. So when the parcel map was digitized with the Mylars, there was kind of an increase in error from west to east, and the Migres is the worst. As long as you don't look at it with any aerial imagery, the actual area sort of reflects the deeded legal description. It's just to visualize, but obviously for appraisers going out in the field, it presents a problem when they're trying to find exactly where to put a shed.
Yeah. So how are you going to fix this? So, talking about this one picture.
Can you talk into your mic? They can't hear.
Oh, sorry. Well, that's because I have to like think about this. So, I don't even know how to ask the question. You know, at what point in this process is this blue line going to line up with where the actual road is? Is it ever going to do that?
So when the contractor goes through, and hopefully in phase 2, they'll be adjusting to any aerial imagery, like fence line corners that they can find. They'll look at the public land survey systems section corners, even though those are fairly far off in the new place. But we also have a lot of county surveys, or surveys that have been recorded in the county, that you can geo-reference any visible structures and kind of overlay the parcel map and adjust the map to those survey descriptions too. So it's kind of like being a private investigator. You have to use all the available information that you can to try to adjust it to where you think it should be and according to the legal description of the survey.
I think what would be really helpful, if at some point you could bring an example of actual parcels, like you were affected by the 350-foot discrepancy. I'm really affected by the fact that R&L is in the middle of a road, and McDonald's, looks like it's on PA Road.
Right.
So I would love to see how that gets resolved. Like if there's some way to explain how the fabric was stretched to make this work, that might help me understand what the heck we're talking about.
Yeah, we could definitely.
Well,
awesome.
To
Okay.
even understand that the fabric is not a piece of cloth, it's just like a thing.
Yes, right.
It's
a metaphorical.
You're right, it's a metaphorical.
Yes, and it will never get to survey quality, the parcel map data. This is just to help visualize better and become more accurate over time. We'll never use the map acreage as a basis for assessing the acreage in the assessor's office. It will always be whatever is stated on the deed as far as the acreage. But it's a tool to help the appraisers and the public visualize those legal descriptions because most people can't read them.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Brown, remember this is actually for ad valorem tax purposes, and we use it for our appraisers to go out to do our reappraisals or our building permits and so on. As technology, continues, we're actually moving on, and I am working closely with Misha on trying to get these surveyors actually recorded in the clerk's office where we can actually have the true data starting now. What happened in the past, we've actually tried everything with our Mylars. We've actually done, this is called rubber sheeting. Now we go from fabric, parcel fabrics. So we've actually been working on this for many, many years. And moving forward, and once again working with Misha, we're actually trying to get the true data now that's being filed in the clerk's office where we're actually coming, and hopefully that we can actually have the accuracy as much as possible. But I just wanted to make this statement that it's actually for ad valorem tax purposes. So if you go out and get a survey on a piece of property, that's actually a true survey. But once again, this is for ad valorem tax purposes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner? Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that one. That one is worse. That was shocking. Well, it's just because that one was the one up on my screen, but yeah, you're right. This one is really, this is kind of mind-bending.
It is mind-bending. Okay, moving to the next item of the agenda, review of February 27th, 2020 regular meeting agenda.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. First item on your agenda is a proclamation declaring March 2020 as National Nutrition Month, and this is presented by Commissioner Edwards. Is there anything you want to explain other than what the proclamation states?
Well, it's a recognition that we can't just think about our food, we have to think about the nutritional quality of it. I think part of the reason why why I'm specifically interested in this is because in the work that I do with kids and ensuring that kids get enough to eat, it's not enough for them to just have calories. They have to have calories that are meaningful. And nutrition is absolutely key to kids' success in school. And we can't just fill them up with cereal or whatever.
Next item, you will receive a report from Gila Regional Medical Center. Elected officials reports. Minutes, you have regular meeting minutes from January 9th as well as 4 special meeting minutes for approval. Financial reports. We'll hear from Linda for item G and H, fiscal year 2020 financial report for the quarter ending December 31st, 2019. And also, if you'll just go from that item into the February 20th expenditure report, please.
Thank you for the invitation and members of the board. You have the quarterly report for the quarter ending December 31st in your packet. And I'll go over the major funds, and I'll begin with the general fund. At the beginning of the fiscal year, we had $4,729,274 in cash, and revenues collected to date is $6,334,219.76, with transfers out of $1,242,783.09. and expenditures of $4,751,320.03, leaving us a balance of $5,069,390.64, and which of that we have to have reserves of $1,187,830.01, with an adjusted balance of $3,881,560.83. Now I'll move on to the road department, which is Fund 20400. It's like the 4th line down. At the beginning of the fiscal year, we had $361,028. Revenues collected to date are $295,727.10, with transfers in of $257,477. and expenditures of $843,906.18, with a cash balance of $70,325.92, and that balance has to be reserved, so it leaves us an adjusted balance of 40 cents. And then I'll go down to the detention center, which is Fund 22600, and it's the second to the last on that first page. At the beginning of the fiscal year, we had $3,285, collected revenues of $347,946.25, with transfers of $50,226, and expenditures of $400. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that didn't sound right. I was like, am I thinking about the 3,000? I'm sorry, let me begin that one. The detention center was $741,147 beginning cash. Revenues of $394,757.32. Transfers of $550,000. Expenditures of $1,678,738.09, with a balance of $7,166.23. There is no reserve requirement for the detention center. All the other funds that are included will be your grants, your fire departments, farm and range, all those that are our special revenue funds. Any questions?
Yep.
We're allowed to transfer out of funds other than the general operating fund, like the environmental fund, we've got 114,000 transfer out. That's not a restricted fund that we have to use those funds for that purpose?
It's restricted in the sense that it has to be used for environmental, which goes into the landfill fund.
So as long as it goes to another...
Actually, that's one that's earmarked.
Oh!
Yes.
So right now, we use it for that, and we'll have to continue to use it for that. But if there was some huge amount of reserve or something, that is one that was de-earmarked in the last
It's funded by a
legislation.
GRT that is no longer required to be spent on just that.
But, DFA is still working through that, so we're not
Right.
there yet, but just for your information, that is one that was de-earmarked.
And actually, that went into Fund 52200 on the landfill enterprise fund.
So even if it had still been earmarked, that would qualify because landfill is environmental.
Correct.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, next, I'll go into the expenditure report. So this report covers the period from December 31st, 2019 through February 20th, 2020. So it is a large sum. It is $4,952,367.56. And I will go over those checks that were above the $10,000.
Linda, hang on. Do you want her to read that entire list? It's
I was
pretty
just
long.
thinking, we could read ourselves and then read everything else, and it's probably...
That's a long list.
I never had more than that.
So we don't have to go through that, you can read it for yourselves?
We can read it and ask questions.
Really, it seemed to me the reason to read it, and thank goodness we went from reading it twice to reading it once, right? I remember when you read it twice.
Thank you for that.
The real reason for that was for people watching, I think, to hear what the big checks were. So is there some way we can make this public in case there's two people out there who actually want to see this information?
Does it go on?
And one of them sitting back there.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Brown, it is available. That's the reason we're in the notice agenda. So it is available as a packet item that they can view off of our website link. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And they're aware of that? I mean, is it on there exactly that they can see that? I mean, and I'm just looking at that. I mean, for me, reading every one of them at the beginning last year was great because I learned a lot, got to ask questions. And I understand what the other commissioners are saying, but I sort of like the transparency of it in the public meetings, that the public understand what we're spending their money on. But, so my question was really, is there anything when they look at the agenda telling them, hey, if you want to see this, I feel more comfortable not reading this if we have something on there, say, you can read this and see where your money's going.
So there's probably ways of drawing a little more attention to that. We work on that. I think there's some room for improvement.
We could even print this up and have it available. Right now. Okay, great.
Through the public portal.
Yeah, okay, cool.
It's quite accessible.
So it's available, great.
Screenshot and post it in whatever.
I was going to say, it's easy to me, but I don't know for some of the general public, but they just answered that for us.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
Thank you. So, yeah, whatever you guys want. I mean, I can look at it and read it.
I do have a question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Biometric readers,
I
should
wanted to know what that was too.
Those are the time clocks that we purchase there biometric.
Okay.
Meaning they don't use a card, they like...
Really?
Thumbs up.
You clock in with your thumb?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm glad that wasn't a stupid question.
I thought they were using the iris.
A retina scan.
Okay, thanks.
So, I have a question. Western New Mexico University, Police Academy tuition, 3 cadets coming out of the general fund. Shouldn't that, I mean, maybe we ought to look at it next year for next, but shouldn't that be coming out of Sheriff's Office budget instead?
It is, that's the general fund. It's the sheriff's,
so just
the
the
sheriff's
general-
department. Yeah, so the general fund, so all the departments within, so we identified what fund that comes out of, so it is out of their budget.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this?
LED lighting project, that's airport?
That's all of our buildings. So that's the first phase of where we were looking at the energy efficiency, HVAC, as well as LED. So we are doing LED retrofits for all buildings.
Covered by bonds.
Correct.
We've got a progress billing on the audit, but why is that not a final billing?
Because we just got our budget, audit finalized here in January, and she'll be here next month to do a presentation. So we're still going to get that one final bill.
Okay.
We good with all that?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, under new business, item I, consideration of the 2020 Volunteer Fire and Rescue Annual Election of Officers, Santa Rita. So this was one that was not ready for their last meeting when we did the other departments, so it's just finishing up with them. And that is in your packets for review. Item J, consideration of reappointment of Lodgers Tax Advisory members. There are 2 seats that are currently open, and they have both requested to be reappointed, and that is Becky O'Connor, who currently serves, actually 3 seats, serves as the chair, John, and I always mess up his last name, the Bear Mountain guy, John Rohovic, and Mike Berigi. So they have all requested to be reappointed. We did not receive any other candidates after we advertised it. So, item K is consideration of asset deletions. Randy, is that what you're here for, or are you here for indigent? You want to talk about the asset deletions while you're here?
Good morning. In your package, you have a listing of asset deletions for capital and non-capital equipment. We're looking at getting rid of some vehicles from the detention center, the maintenance department, and a plotter from the planning department. And then non-capital equipment would be 2 compressors from the road department and a welder from the road department.
Do you have any questions on any of those items?
My question is, when it says permanently disposed, what does that mean?
Most times that just means we're going to take it to the dump. There's no need for it anymore. Not that I'm aware of. We can look into some value on it. Especially, it's not a capital asset that we're tracking for it or added value to the county for it based off of the dollar amount. So at that point, the county wasn't considered a capital asset.
But you can, if there's income to be had, who cares? If it's listed as a capital asset, right? You might as well get the income.
We could send it to auction and try to get something.
I don't know if there's a cost to doing that, right? If you send something to auction and it doesn't sell, and then you take it to the dump, is there any cost to doing that?
You're incurring the costs of staff to, usually we have to take our auction items to Las Cruces. So you have staff time there and back. That would be your only cost incurred. Or, we could always, maybe perhaps, we've taken seal bids on vehicles. I don't know if that would be appropriate for that, but
sure.
Randy and I can work on that. We can come up with
Are we required by law to auction it?
No.
You can't just sell it?
You can sell it by seal bid.
Right.
By seal bid.
But
Or you can give it to another government agency.
correct.
Sure.
I don't know if that's what you were thinking.
No, I was just thinking about, somebody that had mechanical capacity and needed a compressor that would pay us, $250 for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Most of that stuff we can rebuild.
I was also thinking about the fact that I hate to see us, filling up the dump with stuff like this if it still has useful life, just not for us.
So maybe we can use this particular one as a test and see if there's a better way of disposing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Next section is agreements. Item L, consideration of agreement A 20-02 Community Development Block Grant Program grant agreement for project number 19CNRI01G15. This is the CDBG grant for Baton Park, and we were a little delayed. Our project manager had left, and we kind of got forgotten. So we were able to remind them that they forgot us when we were in Santa Fe, and instantly had our grant agreement. So we are ready after you guys approve this. We can move that project forward. Yes.
So the first step would be getting the engineering or the architectural or...
So that's what Misha has in his office that he spoke of in his report.
That's already been done.
Okay, yes.
No?
Part of it has.
Part of it.
Yeah, Chairman, Commissioners, it's about 60% right now, but that's our match portion.
The whole 100% of it is our match. And it's just in progress, which is why you only have 60% of it done.
Chairman Commissioner Edwards, that's correct. So the cost of the engineering is what we're using as our match that we have to meet, and we got that started because we can utilize that match prior to this agreement.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions on that? No? Okay. Next, item M, consideration of agreement A 2003, Memorandum of Understanding with the Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division for the DWI program. And also, while she's up there, I am going to have her discuss item P under resolutions, consideration of resolution R 2013, authorizing the county to submit an application to the Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division to participate in the local DWI grant and distribution program.
Good morning. How are you guys this morning? So you should have basically 4 items on the agenda for me that are the normal items every year. Actually, DFA deleted one of the contracts that we normally sign. So you should have a memorandum of understanding, statement of assurances, the resolution, and the budget sheet, the front sheet that shows you what I'm going to send. So those are the 4 items that you should have. So I'll discuss a little bit, as I said, this is for fiscal year 21. And as I go through here, I'll kind of report what we've been doing for this year also. So you get a little update and puts what we do in perspective, okay? So as you see, the distribution every year, that changes. That's one of those items that is based on gross receipts, and there's a formula, so it changes every year. So we never know what it's going to be until we get our budget from DFA, and that could mean we get that full amount. That could mean we get less than that at the end of the year. That could mean we get more. The grant is set, but we apply for what we think. So this year, our distribution was set at almost $179,000, which is 20 more than fiscal year 20. So we'll have an increase in our budget of about $20,000 for distribution, which is good. The first thing, as you see on here, is prevention. I have that split into distribution and the grant that covers my prevention specialist and, of course, Corey Cantinas. We're going to continue this year applying to give them $30,000. Know that our ridership has gone. It just goes down a little bit every year. We were down about 2,000 rides last year. Our highest was about a few years ago. We had about 9,000 rides for the year. Last year was just about 5,100. So it fluctuates, and it's just going down. So we're going to try some different things to try and get that up. I had my intern from WNMU, I think I mentioned, she did a little evaluation on that this year for me, and which does show that when we advertise that, the ridership tends to go up. We did have, I think it was 110 rides for New Year's Eve, and all I did was put it out on Facebook. So it doesn't necessarily have to cost us a lot putting it out on the radio and that, even though I do have a budget for that. So I'll try that tactic also, put it on our county website, put it out on, there's Grant County information and goodies and all that, which people tend to see more. And then as the weather's getting better, the ridership should go up a little bit, but we start Lent this week, and generally
drinking goes down, ridership goes down. So we may see a little bit of dip down in that also. Know that we collaborate. I've been a part of the Youth Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition since its inception. I'm on the core team, and so they focus. Of course, it's all environmental strategies. I work really hard with the organization dealing with the schools, especially Silver Schools, to change their policies. And they did change their policies on their drug and alcohol use for athletes. So they changed their athletic handbook. Excuse me. And we're still continuing to try and work with them on that zero tolerance. We don't like to see somebody just get suspended from school when they can sit home and then still use. We'd like to see them get assessed. That's a big one for us. Keep them in school, get them assessed, see if they need some help. That's the biggest part for us. Get it fixed before it gets too bad, right? So we do, we do more direct services. I hear people say that nobody's in the schools, nobody's doing things with the kids, and so we need DARE. Well, we work with DARE, and it's nice to see that DARE has become, they've changed their curriculum now, and so it's really great, and we work with them, but we've been in schools for a long time, almost about 17 years. And we were in 14 classes last in the fall semester. Spring semester is always less because they have all the testing and stuff going on in the spring semester. But I also am in all the driver's ed classes. I did 6 in the fall semester. I'll do 5 more. So I'm on all the schools, and that will start. I start tomorrow at Cliff, and so we get those scheduled throughout the stuff. And we work really hard to keep in the classrooms and work with the teachers what they need. It's not just on substance abuse. I remember, if you guys remember, Bill Richardson, when he was governor, had a DWI czar, and we would meet with her regularly, and DFA always they had a narrow concept of what we were allowed to teach and what we were allowed to talk about in our curriculums and in schools, and it was basically drinking and driving. That was it. Well, we know that it's much more than that, and we know that most evidence-based curriculum teaches life skills and all that, and it covers much more than just substance use. Bullying, violence, substance use, and all that. And so we work real hard to pick a good curriculum. Some teachers don't want us to do the full curriculum. We show videos. We do a pre-test. We have videos on communication, on e-cigarettes, on vaping, on making friends, on peer pressure, lots of different things, not just talking about drugs. So we cover an abundance of things. We showed probably 50 last year 50 different videos to the schools and work with them. We'll be doing some Cobra has asked us this year before prom to do some presentations. We'll be doing that. So our prevention program is very substantial, and as you see, takes a lot of our money. And we use most of our money there because we hope to stop the problem. Enforcement, as you see, enforcement is enforcement. We just basically ask them to do saturation patrols. They can do party patrols. We may have them work during proms and after proms so that they're watching what's going on. The screening, you notice there's not a budget there. It's self-funded. So the law is that every DWI offender has to do an alcohol and drug assessment, and we charge them $75 for that. Domestic violence, we don't refund them any money. So treatment, if you notice this year, it's gone down a little bit because we've noticed that a lot of our offenders have Medicaid now. And so we don't have to, we're not spending as much money. A lot of them are going over to CASA and that, so we don't have to spend, so we can use that elsewhere. Now, the compliance monitoring and tracking is my probation officer, and of course I spend a lot of my time doing that. We go to court a lot. We did about, what did we do? We did almost 800 drug tests last year from January 1st through to the December 31st, 691, which came out negative, 76 positives.
Not all of them are the urinalysis. We have most of them, everybody's breathalyzed when they come in, but all first-time offenders are drug tested with the urine drug test. A lot of methamphetamines is what the biggest positive is, and marijuana, but a lot of methamphetamines. So when they come up positive like that, we really try and get them help is what we do. We file probation violations, and our first thing is to get them into treatment, not request that they go into jail. So we have a lot of our offenders in treatment. Most of them are. We've been getting more and more into inpatient treatment. And so we spend a lot of our time doing that. And then there's coordination, planning, and evaluation. That covers some of mine. I spend probably, I think 20% of my time on that. We try evaluating most of our programs as they're going along. Our prevention, as we said, we do pre and post. We do lots of different things for there. And then alternative sentencing is my GPS scram units, and that's self-funded, so we don't ask for any money from that. So, one of the things, and I'm always very proud of this, because DFA does not say that safe rides are evidence-based, but I've developed some stuff that shows ours is evidence-based, so I can count ours as evidence-based. And what our data shows, the people arrested for DWIs last year's, the calendar year, in most cases, almost 75% of them, there was no crash involved, and only less than 2% the crash happened during the times that Corte Cantinas was running. So those are those peak times throughout the state for drinking and driving when most crashes do occur. That Friday night, 5:30 in the afternoon till 2:30 in the morning. Same thing for Saturday night. So ours are occurring at much less of a percentage than the rest of the state. So I always can count that as evidence-based, and it makes our county look great. So that's what we've done and what we continue to do to work hard. I'm trying to get my prevention specialist certified. I've added a little more to the training and travel budget items so that we can. There's not nearly as many trainings available, so we're going to try some online in that. But when I was first started almost 20 years ago, there used to be a lot of training available for prevention, and there's just not anymore. And so we need to get them certified. So I added some to that, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you.
Cindy, I want to go back to the zero tolerance policy, and I actually was going to ask Corinna this question, and it fell out of my head at the time. So, when a student gets suspended or expelled for substance abuse, I want to know a little bit about the process. So I know a family who has been struggling with this issue, and I just would like to know what the process is. How do you know that a student's in danger? Who assesses them? What happens?
I don't know if they're getting assessed now. I think COBRE is having them, and you need to look at if they're an athlete and it happened off school property. Maybe somebody took a picture, they turned them in, they post this stuff, and so they find out. And then the process is suspending them from playing for 90 days, I believe. I know that.
What about kids that are non-athletes?
If it's after, there's really nothing they can. If it's off school property, and that there's nothing, because there's nothing they can take away from them. They're not an athlete. Okay. Athletes sign a code of conduct.
So what you're saying then is students who get suspended or expelled for substance abuse are likely to be athletes?
Well, the data shows
on school property.
So that's not what I'm saying. Now, data does show that athletes are more at risk, but
what I'm saying is if you're a student, you sign an agreement and you have a code and it says you won't drink, you won't use drugs and that.
That's
while
a
you're
fair
So we're talking, so there's two different subjects, on school property versus off school property.
Okay, well, so let's back up just a second. So my question is about students that are not athletes that are expelled or suspended for substance use. What happens?
I don't always know. You know, if they're expelled, it's because they had it on school grounds, not using it off of school property. Okay, so know that it has nothing to do with using it elsewhere.
So I get that. So are there not a lot of suspensions or kids getting expelled?
The school doesn't tell us. Yeah, the school doesn't tell us that. We're not really privy. Are you?
No, and to kind of elaborate on that a little bit too, from some of the discussions that we have, some of the discussions we have had with administrators, the consequences of someone who gets caught using or even just having some type of paraphernalia that relates to any of those things, it varies by school administrator. So that's kind of really the problem. There is a more focused, streamlined athletic policy, but when it comes to just the general population, it's at the discretion of the administrator, and don't quote me on that. And they each kind of have their own way of dealing with things. I mean, I'm hearing of stuff happening in elementary schools. So how do you deal with something like that? You know, kindergartner having a pipe or something. So there's really not a set way for the general population. That's what we're hoping to kind of streamline, at least the general system that is followed by everyone.
Okay.
And JPO is usually involved in. If they have possession of an item on school grounds, JPPO is generally called, and law enforcement should be, right? And so then it goes to JPPO.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Moving on to resolutions, item N, consideration of resolution R 2011-2020 Grant County maintained roads. This is an annual requirement that the county submit its mileage certification to New Mexico DOT. Earl has submitted a resolution with certification of approximately 690.64 miles, and that is no changes from the previous year. You have maps as well as the roads divided by district in your packet. Is there anything I missed, Earl?
No, that's it, Shirley. Like I said, there were no changes from last year's.
Do you have any questions? And this is what determines our LGRF funding. Next, item O, consideration of resolution R 2012, consideration of we have to put that in the title. Consideration of resolution R 2012, amending the approved and adopted budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2019, and for county purposes in the County of Grant, Silver City, New Mexico, transferring and appropriating funds thereof. DFA makes us say all of that to do a resolution to do budget adjustments. So do you want to go through those?
Yes. Thank you, Charlene, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. There's a resolution in the packet with several adjustments in there, mainly for grants, but I'll go over them. The first one being a transfer from the general fund out into Correcaminos, and this is just a temporary cash transfer until we get a cash flow on the reimbursement for the quarter. There's an increase in revenue and expenses of $1,247, and this is for an EMS grant. There's revenue and expenditure increase in the amount of $15,120, and this is for the NDWI grant, the Buckle Up, Click It or Take It grant, and the Selective Traffic Enforcement grant for the Sheriff's Office. There's an increase in revenue and expenses of $16,832, and this was for the 2020 DWI grant. This was to make the adjustment to coincide with the actual award of funds. And then there's a increase in revenue and expenses of $750,000, and this is for the CDBG grant for the Baton Park. There's an increase in expenses and revenue of $277,500, and this is for the CHI program where they received the legislative funding, the Center for Health Innovations. And then there's an increase in revenue and expenses of $1,476,159.40, and this is for the algae road transportation grant. This is for the Hurley Road?
North Hurley.
Yeah, for North Hurley Road. And then we have an increase in the county capital projects of expenses of $191,750. And this is actually for the match funds for the Colonias projects application that was just submitted. And then we have an increase in the bond debt service for the interest payments, $56,119.67. I didn't have the final numbers on this bond schedule when we approved the final budget, so this is an increase on the interest of what I had originally budgeted. Then we have an increase in expenses of $544,929. No, let me rephrase that. We have an increase in revenue of $544,929 and a transfer from the airport into the airport grants of $2,497 and an increase in expenses of $547,426. And these are for the airport terminal rehab grant and for the apron design, the reconstruction of the apron for the design phase of these grants. So,
where is the transfer in coming from?
From the airport, from the Fund 454. It's within the same.
Okay.
It's within the same enterprise fund.
Oh, it's just pound signs on my screen.
Okay.
But that, now I can see where it's supposed to be.
Okay. So those are the adjustments, and I stand for any questions.
What's yours on there? What's yours on there?
What's the comprehensive health career programs thing again?
We're the fiscal agents for the Center for Health Innovations. We approved this agreement to be their fiscal agents. They say it was like in December.
Yeah.
And so we're just the fiscal agents, and I have to include it into our budget.
I remember the conversation, I just didn't remember the dollar amount, I guess. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, the contingencies, refresh me on those.
Basically, that is for the Colonias grant applications that were approved last month. And we have to budget the funds for it, for grant match funds on it. So it's contingent based on the applications that are going to be accepted and any funds that are awarded to us for those projects.
So we only make those expenditures if we get grants?
Correct.
And that maybe explains why they're not balanced by any increase in revenue?
Correct.
The interest payment, on the other hand, that's actual money out?
Yes.
And that's coming out of what we had to carry over?
Yeah, well, from the collections of the bond revenue.
Right.
And that's where it's coming in from. So the revenue's already basically there.
And why is it that they were higher than we anticipated?
When we did the final budget, we didn't have final numbers yet on the debt service schedule. So it was just a projection on my end that I did. And so...
So you just projected low, basically?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
We don't use what Lele tells us, or?
We did at the time, but it wasn't broken down between principal and interest payment. It was
Okay.
just a lump sum amount.
Okay.
So once we receive those final bond documents, then she's able to,
Right.
to make this adjustment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, next is the Grant County Health Care Claims Board. Items Q is consideration of indigent burial from Terrazas Funeral Chapels, which is always $600 per state statute. Item R is consideration of December 2019 and January 2020 indigent health claims in the amount of $12,056.04. Randy, did you want to go into any kind of detail on those, or is that sufficient?
It's pretty straightforward. There's two claims for the month of December that were accidentally left off by the hospital. So one is for the hospital and one is for the ambulance for the month of December. And you have 6 claims from the hospital and 1 claim for the ambulance for the month of January. So a total of $12,056.04. All of these claims have been reviewed by detention center and the medical management staff and recommend for approval.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Any questions? Okay, that you also have a scheduled executive session, but that concludes your agenda for Thursday.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Sean. Yes, sir.
On the agenda, a couple of things. Should we move P up so it's basically N so that Cindy can do both things at once?
Cindy won't be here on Thursday. That's why we had her come today, and it's difficult to move things around in Novus because it's a template.
Okay. If there's no inconvenience to her, then I don't care. That's fine. Don't need to move it.
The only thing that might be nice is to have all of the documents in one letter or the other.
So I did combine some of them.
Maybe I'm having a problem today, but I am really having a hard time going back and forth between my documents today. Every time I do that, I have to re-log in.
That's what I've been doing too.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's, when it has quirks like that, that's beyond our control. Obviously, there's a problem. So we just need to know those things. Kevin's already going to make a call as to why our bar for the work session has disappeared today. So we will add that there was an issue there as well. So sorry.
So specifically, if you click on an item in the bar on the regular agenda, so that you can see the additional reports, at the bottom, then when you try to go back, it makes you log in again.
That's what's happening with mine too.
Mine's working. Okay.
Mine's fine too. That's fine. Sorry. Either maybe it's the version I'm on tablet.
Before you leave today, you can let me look over your shoulder and see what's happening. I can better then get it taken care of.
Sounds good.
I'm on tablet too, are you guys?
Yeah, she's on tablet.
Oh, okay.
I thought that might be it. So I have one other thing about the agenda. I need to talk about the March and April meeting dates. And maybe we do that during comments today, or we can do it during the agenda Thursday.
Just comments and give us a idea of these.
Okay.
So I'm the one holding up the show now, right? Looking at you like you're done.
Not going to say anything.
So we did that. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Brown.
So our March regular meeting is scheduled for the same date as the NMC, the New Mexico County's legislative review in Doñana. I went to that last year and I found it useful. I was thinking of going again and then I realized it was the same date as our meeting. So we could all skip it or we could talk about changing the meeting.
It's on the work session day or the regular session?
No, the regular is Thursday.
And what day is that? Sorry.
The 19th, I believe.
What if we did a combined session on the 17th?
March.
Rather than moving the whole thing?
That would address the problem, obviously.
March 19th, right?
Yeah, we'd have to do it on the 17th then.
Mm-hmm. Combined session on the 17th.
Or, I
Does
guess
anybody have a problem with, why weren't we doing it on the 24th, on the 4th?
There was a request to change the March meeting.
Oh.
Wasn't there?
Yeah, I didn't realize.
No,
That was February.
That was February.
That was this month. So
I didn't
it's
realize
the
when we
third.
changed it, it was to spring break.
I think third is the normal.
Because we went to one meeting, we went to the third.
We went back to the
The third
That's what happened.
Does anyone have a conflict on the fourth week? The 24th? and
I do,
26th?
yeah, I
Okay.
can't meet that.
And we have presentations scheduled for March, and that
Okay.
just causes upheaval for everyone.
Those are scheduled for the work session. So the upheaval is minimized if we combine it to the 17th. Or we can, I mean, I don't know, is anybody else thinking of going to that NFC?
was.
You were, okay.
It's on the calendar.
Next 3, okay.
It's on the calendar.
So it would be easier for us if you left it the same week and you did the combined on Tuesday.
That would be easier for me as well.
I have no problem with that at all.
Can you do that, Tony?
I'm good, yeah, thanks.
And that
All right.
was
I may not
17th,
be
hold
here,
on,
but I-
before. I'm good with it. I mean,
Okay. So April, I had originally thought it wouldn't be a problem. I'm going to have more to say about this on Thursday, I think, but I am planning to attend climate reality leadership training in San Antonio. Y'all have heard me talk plenty about climate change, and I've had few concrete things to recommend we can do. So that's my interest in going to this event.
And I'm thinking very seriously about
Oh, are
going
you?
to that event as well, yeah.
You have only a few more days to apply.
I know.
So I was not planning to ask the county for any assistance in getting there. I'm planning to get there on my own dime because it's something I believe we need to be addressing, but I don't necessarily need the county to put forth the money yet. But it does mean that I couldn't make either the work session or the regular session, April 14 or 16, because I'd be leaving the evening of April 13.
So, and part of the reason why I hadn't yet decided that I would do that is because I have a conference the week of the 19th all week. And so I could not reschedule for the 4th week of April.
So we could go to the 5th week?
Or the 2nd.
Oh, the 4th. No, the 4th week of April is the 28th and the...
I think she's counting that as the 5th week.
I'm
Okay.
counting that as the 5th week.
Okay, so could we go to that, or what's the preference?
do it this first week of April?
First week?
Which I'm calling the 2nd week. That would be
What's the
April.
manager's preference?
That you not change it. I'm not trying to be crabby, but, we schedule things well in advance, and
So is it better for a commissioner to miss the meeting than it is to reschedule?
can neither of you break away for a little bit and call in, or you want to...
I think if I put out $1,000 to go to this thing, I'm gonna go.
So I understand that, and it's your preference what you want to do, but
Yeah, I
we'll
could
just
very
we'll
well miss the
reschedule
March
any
meeting with the
presentations that we have for
reschedule.
April.
I think, we're going to see things come up in our lives and all that, but I think we need to try to stay on track as much as we can on these commissioner meetings because of the staff. I understand that you want to go do this and do that, but to me, the way I look at it is I have a schedule for the whole year of 2020. So I try to plan my things, and I'm not saying things don't come up for those dates, but I don't mind changing them every now and then, but I think I'm sort of a little bit with our county manager to say our staff has reports to get ready and they get things to do too. So, whatever you guys prefer for March or April, but beyond that, let's just try as best as we can to stick with what we have. That's
I guarantee you I try.
Chairman, Commissioners, I'm sorry, but we have already advertised a public hearing for an ordinance, which is on March 19th.
Yeah.
Which ordinance is
But
that?
did we miss the deadline? Are we within our...
Well, we had 30 days, so we advertised it 30 days prior, which already happened in February, notifying the public that we have a public hearing on March 19th. This is for the ordinance on the abandoned buildings, so that's already been advertised.
All right. And frankly, the NMC meeting is lower priority for me.
So it's those type of things that we schedule well in advance that sometimes, thank you for reminding me.
Well,
of
the
that.
NMC schedule didn't come out until this past week, until yesterday even, so.
You know, and I've been noticing too that when people come up here and speak, usually most of the meetings that the public have for some reason are Tuesdays and Thursdays. You know, we just heard earlier, you know, we're gonna have a meeting that's our scheduled commissioner meeting, so we can look at that. But if that's what we need to do on the 19th, we'll do it on the 19th. I mean, my thing would be keep it March 17th and 19th like we were originally planned.
Yeah, if it's already been advertised, I'm okay with that.
That's fine with me. April, it sounds like you'll be missing 2 commissioners if we don't change that one.
So April, we have more time, right? We haven't scheduled anything that we know of or anything?
I would have to look at that. I know Earl's looking at bringing Mr. Dodge in April, so I mean, I would prefer that you guys probably make that decision now so we can make those adjustments and make sure we don't have anything else.
I thought he was coming in, you were trying to be a DOT, right?
Yeah, I think we were going to
Local
try.
government red fund, right?
So, but, you know, just more, I would prefer that you guys decide that now rather than waiting another month whenever we have things.
Because somebody in Santa Fe told me they were coming down March 17th to do a presentation.
That was George, but he had
That's George.
but he has a conflict on his schedule, so we were trying to move him to April. But, I mean, we can push him back to May. That's why I would like for you to decide what you want to do with April now.
Now being either today or Thursday. Yeah.
May I ask a clarifying question for me? So, when we went to one meeting, we decided to go to the 3rd.
Get in your mic so they can
Thursday.
When we went to one meeting a month, we decided to go to the 3rd week, so April would be the week of the 13th?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the only problem I have is I adjusted my work schedule to meet that. So I would be gone on Tuesdays. So I wouldn't be available for the work session.
On which week you wouldn't be available?
I did that through May.
You're saying you're not available on the 14th?
No, I
He
am,
is,
but
but
if
not
we were
the
to
others.
change it, you know, to say the following week.
If it were the 21st, you would not be available.
Yes, so
And if it
I
were
won't
the
be here,
se-
but that's
what
the
about the
work
7th?
session. And, you know, I could get whatever happened at the work session from the chairman. So it's not a big deal, but it still is that, you know, I would have to miss a work session.
What if we do April, the week of April 6th through 10th, work session and regular meeting?
That would be my proposal.
Are you good with that, Commissioner Sutherland?
Well, it's the same thing. I scheduled my
He's saying he's
my work
working
day.
every Tuesday except the 3rd Tuesday of the month.
I work 2 Tuesdays a month. And what I did was I scheduled them to be away from the 3rd week. But that would only affect, but I could try to change that day to a Thursday.
20 years.
Go ahead.
I've been attending county commission meetings since 2000. Commissioners miss meetings. As long as you've got a quorum, you're fine.
Understood.
We think we're more important than that, Mary Alice.
Yeah, well, I miss meetings too.
Well, I mean, my thing here would be, I mean, we're gonna keep March 17th, 19th, and let's decide on something for April, and then we can just go with the rest, what's in the books, as best as we can.
Well, I realize the importance of being here, and I could probably change my date, but I can't tell you that today.
Maybe on Thursday?
Yeah, you know, I could change my date to maybe even Wednesday or something so I could be free for the meetings, but I'd have to make those arrangements.
So can we finish this conversation on Thursday?
So what day are we looking at, just so I'm clear? On the 14th
7th and 9th.
Oh, on the 7th and 9th.
Changing it from the 14th and 16th to the 7th and 9th.
Okay. Commissioner Brown, if any other report?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Salas?
Well, I would like to say that, our session is over. One of the things that concerns me as we move forward with the projects that we want on our ICIP, and that is that the uncertainty of the funding for the future years. There's so many variables that can affect the funding. As we speak, there's that the virus that's been out there now, which has really hit the financial markets now, which could stand to impact even our own. But there's other variables that would certainly have an impact. The predictions are right now that there's going to be money there for a few years, but there's no guarantee. So one of the things that I would like to do in meeting with you guys is maybe get a clearer direction on, say, our big project, right, like Baton, and how we would want to go forth with that, so that we could get a hierarchy there that we wanted to say, hey, let's go here, here, here. What's more important to us? It's just
You're suggesting to prioritize our...
Well, I think we've done it in a same fashion right now, where we're getting our infrastructure set. So then it's going to be more wants than needs. So, we would, if we got a clearer picture of how we wanted to go in that direction, so that we could plan that. Say our next wants would be, like for me, it would be working on the building. Somebody else might want more lighting, more trail lighting, multi-purpose field or whatever. But if we understood and we decided what we needed or what we wanted going forth.
Are you talking about Baton Park specifically or projects generally?
Well, I'm right now Baton Park specifically, because that's right now is our multi-phase project.
But so what if something else came up that was more urgent than Baton Park? So we have some money for some trails and some ADA and some stuff like that. But what if something came up in the meantime that was a higher priority than Baton? So, for example, maybe what if the phases didn't all go happen linearly because of other priorities?
Well, I think that's a conversation, a discussion that we really need to have, because I can see possibilities and I can see the rationale and the logic in doing things in phases. But I also see the reality is that, we've seen funding dry up before.
Right.
So, what would our super priorities be? And I imagine we all have ideas as to what we would like. So, maybe getting a consensus on what it would be. And I'm just putting it's just put that seed out there to think about it.
I agree with certain things. I agree with both sides of the commissioners. We don't know what's going to hit us in a few. We don't know what's going to hit us this afternoon. Watch this down the road there. I think part of our thing was that, and we just completed a survey on our strategic plan. I think that was a good idea to give us some direction. But I think, Baton Park is pretty well too a project of mine that I really, that's I guess being that it's in my district, looking at the mining district, is what they have. Town of Silver City has done great for some of the projects that they have. But I also look at Baton Park as a piece of what everybody's trying to do with it and incorporating the trails. I think right now we're headed in the right direction. We have plenty of money that, the trails that are, hopefully the money's coming in, doing all that. But and I understand where you're coming in, and I'm glad that you brought that up. But we sort of have to look at the big picture, I guess.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
May I offer a suggestion?
Yes.
So we already have somewhat of that process in place as we develop our infrastructure capital improvement plan each year. We have several public hearings, try to do those in outlying areas, and perhaps that we need to have a little bit more of an engaged conversation amongst you about the details of that plan. Not only do we use that for capital outlay for the legislature, we also use that as an internal planning document as to, do we budget money out of our general fund and present that to you to pay for things ourselves? Do we look at phasing that in based upon different funding structures? And Commissioner Salas is exactly right. Those dry up right and left, and you can't rely on those. Right. But that's a process that we have in place, and that's the intention, is to get us to plan around those, and we look at that every year. So perhaps maybe we could schedule something a little more in depth this coming year as we put that plan together, and give you time to really discuss different projects, different ideas, and your thoughts as to where that funding should come from. It's just my suggestion.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think all of us want to see different pieces and different things going into Baton Park. But I also have other constituents too that have concerns about some roads. They have concerns that I'm happy with what Misha's doing. We're planning on phase 3 because we get a lot of concerns about the North Hurley Road. We get a lot of concerns about the trash. We get concerns also about Ridge Road. So we have to stay open-minded and look at what's going to hit us next. Do I love the economic development piece that can happen with Baton Park? Yes. And I think your idea would probably be great, and maybe down the road set up some type of work session, something for us to discuss that. Anything else in your comment?
That's fun. I just wanted, knowing that this virus right now has really hit. It's a worldwide financial crisis that it is created, and being that it's that, then the trickle down is certainly going to hit our county.
Of course, if it gets to that point where we're really thinking about coronavirus, we're not going to be thinking about Baton Park at all. We're going to be thinking about a public health crisis.
I mean, if you look last year, Deming got hit pretty good with the border issue. That was millions of dollars. It doesn't take much for something like that to hit Grant County.
That's right.
But no, and I agree with you, Commissioner Salas, and I agree with you, Commissioner Edwards. I guess as we go through this, and as agents of our budget, we always have to be on our toes, see what's going to hit us. Anything else, Commissioner?
That's it. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Commissioner Billings.
Nothing today.
Nothing today. I just want to thank all the commissioners for their input and what they say. I also like to thank Raul, our assessor there, for the burlesque baseball there, the invitation. You thought I was going to let you off the hook, but it's a good thing. We support town of Silver City, and we support, and that wasn't the only thing, but I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that we have to support our town. That's part of Grant County, and it was a little different for me, but I had fun, and I can't believe how we have a good baseball player over here. I guess Commissioner Brown played college baseball, from what I understand.
Just a year.
Just a year?
Thank you, Chris.
That was more than I did in college, so that's good. So no, but I really want to thank you, want to thank the people from the town of Silver. They did great. I know they had a lot of other events that I wasn't able to attend, but it feels good supporting, the other communities within Grant County and doing that. So I appreciate that. And thank you.
Make sure he plays next year. He just hung out and commented.
Well, I think he just likes that microphone.
So my question is, did you dress up? And if so, where are the pictures?
Well, my question for you is, why aren't you on Facebook?
There you go.
Well, you weren't even there.
Hey, word gets out, but maybe we block you before we post things. Not really. Just joking. But it was fun, and my hat's off to the town of Silver City and everybody that put that together. And we're just waiting for the next event for one of our communities within Grant County. But thanks. That's it for me. You're looking at me.
I have lima beans and second graders waiting on me. So.
There you go.
So, does that mean we're not doing this?
So we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Are we not doing the disposal of, I'm on the wrong agenda, and it went back. That was my problem. Sorry, I second the motion.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Billings, 2 seconded by Commissioner Brown and Edwards. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. You guys have a good day.